The incessant ringing of the doorbell slowly pulled me out of a deep sleep. I crawled out of bed without even managing to pry my eyes open. Somehow, I accomplished this heroic feat right at the moment I opened the front door, intuitively knowing that opening it would finally end the cursed chime of those damned bells. I was just beginning to understand what the hell Edgar Allan Poe had been trying to tell us all. All I needed right now was a damned raven on the windowsill. If you had left your phone on, I wouldn't have had to torture you with the doorbell, Jeff. I see they still deliver your firewood in the mornings, giggled my ex-wife Janice, focusing her attention on the little boy standing at attention for his morning inspection. It's generally considered polite to wear clothes when answering the front door, though personally, I have no objections to your new casual style. I looked down and realized I wasn't wearing any underwear. That struck me as odd. Why had I forgotten to put them on before going to bed? And why the hell was Janice ringing my doorbell so damn early? I didn't want to wake you up so early, Jeff, she said with a smirk, but I figured you'd be up by now, to eat lunch. I promised Kendra I'd grab her phone and bring it to campus, since I was headed there anyway. She said she left it in your bathroom. With that, Janice turned toward the bathroom, which was just across the room from where we were standing. She cast a quick glance through the open door to my bedroom, then abruptly stepped toward it. You bastard, she yelled over her shoulder as she stormed into my bedroom. You're sleeping with Amber. She was one of my bridesmaids' friends. Suddenly, I remembered why I wasn't wearing boxers. The night before, I had run into Amber at the local watering hole. Somehow, we'd ended up back at my apartment after the bar closed. Unless I imagined it all, I had spent most of the night having sex with her, like, crazy sex. She looks like you blew her mind out through her ears. Janice shouted. She looks like ground beef. That chest cannot be real, right? I looked over Janice's shoulder and saw Amber sprawled out on my bed, wearing nothing but a charming smile. I couldn't help but note with pride that she looked a little worn out. Janice's shouting must have dragged Amber out of her dreams. Damn. I feel like my brains have been completely scrambled, Amber groaned, stretching like a cat across my bed and slowly rubbing her eyes. What the hell are you doing here, Janice? I stopped by to pick up my daughter's phone, if that's any of your business, you adulterous witch, Janice snapped. How can you sleep with my husband and still call yourself my friend? First of all, he's not your husband anymore, Janice, Amber replied calmly. Second, if this bothers you that much, we'll just have to stop being friends. Because I'm definitely not planning to stop sleeping with Jeff. How can you cheat on a guy like him? He's got the stamina of an ox and an overactive imagination, Amber smirked. Bottom line, he's my lover even in my dreams. I feel like he used a jackhammer on me. I just thought that in a difficult time like this, you'd be a bit more supportive, Janice whined. Try thinking about someone besides yourself for once. Oh, that's rich, coming from the cheating wife who slept with her husband's best friend, for about a year, wasn't it? Amber shot back as she pulled a shirt over her chest. Who the hell were you thinking about when you were in bed with Mike, Janice? It definitely wasn't Mike's wife, was it? I don't think you're in any position to lecture me about friendship or selfishness. Then she added with a grin, and for the record, these breasts are real. Jeff told me they're amazing. That is so like you, Amber. Your little holier-than-thou act isn't going to work on me, Janice snapped. I remember the night you left the house with that guy from college, while you were still married to Ralph. You cheated on your husband too. Yeah, and because of that, I got divorced, just like you did, Amber admitted. The difference is, I don't fall apart every time Ralph ends up with someone who isn't me. I messed up, sure, but let's be honest, Ralph never had Jeff's sex drive. If he'd been half the lover Jeff was last night, I never would have cheated. I've moved on, and maybe it's time you did too. Unlike you, I realize I made a mistake, and I want to make it right with my husband, Janice said with a sob. We could be together again, and you're not helping, damn it. I think it's time you got dressed and went home. We could be together again. Where the hell did that come from? This was only the second time I'd seen Janice since our divorce 6 months ago. Clearly, she was feeling some regret about how things had ended. Janice, you have no right to speak to my guest like that. Why don't you just find Kendra's phone and head out? I suggested, more than gently. Thank you, Jeff, Amber smiled, looking at me. Looks like we'll need to deal with this little problem as soon as Janice is out the door. I almost felt sorry for Janice as she stomped into the bathroom and quickly returned with our daughter's phone. I saw tears running down her cheeks as she walked past me. The door slammed, and she was gone. Amber grabbed my hand and pulled me back into the bedroom. She was true to her word. It had all been spontaneous. A friend from work called Saturday morning and asked if I could be the fourth player in a golf tournament at a nice resort in Delaware, about a 3-hour drive from home. Janice was away at a seminar in Pittsburgh, so I readily agreed. I played pretty well and had a great time. Before we headed to the clubhouse for dinner and the award ceremony, I stopped by the men's room. As I was walking from the restroom toward the banquet hall, I suddenly saw Janice and Mike Reed, my now former best friend, sitting together in a small side dining room. They were laughing and toasting when Janice looked up and locked eyes with me. The mix of shock and guilt on her face told me everything I needed to know. I spun around and rushed back into the restroom. What was left of the hot dog I'd eaten earlier, along with several bottles of beer, violently erupted from my stomach, twisted in knots. I was rinsing off my face when Mike walked into the bathroom. I have no idea what he intended to say. I left him lying under the urinal, soaked in someone else's piss. When I stepped out, Janice was already waiting for me. She looked completely stunned and lost. Jeff. Please, talk to me. We need to work this out. Mike means nothing to me. I love you, she begged. What a shame, Janice, I snapped coldly. That dumb bastard got his jaw broken for nothing. We're getting divorced over this. I left her standing there. I had an overwhelming urge to hurt her, and I knew I'd regret it if I acted on it. I had never raised a hand to a woman before, but no woman had ever humiliated me the way Janice just had. I quickly found my car and sped home. Mike must have taken a while to come to and start moving. I was just pulling out of the driveway with the last load of my clothes and personal things when I passed him and Janice driving down our street. I flipped them off as we passed each other. Janice was driving Mike's car, and her face went pale when she saw what I was doing. Her cheeks were tear-streaked, and her eyes were red and swollen. I wondered how she even managed to get back safely in that state. The divorce decree arrived 4 months later. I had already been living as a bachelor for 6 months by the time Janice knocked on my door that morning. Given the circumstances, everything went as smoothly as possible. I never told anyone that Janice and Mike had been lovers, but the rumor spread through our small town like wildfire. The last I heard, Mike and his wife were living apart. I made it a rule to stay out of the same social circles as either Mike or Janice, so everything I heard was secondhand gossip at best. Over the next few months, I went through all the usual bouts of self-doubt and judgment. I felt betrayed. I felt humiliated. I was often physically sick. Was I really that inadequate as a husband? Didn't I fulfill my responsibilities? Was Janice truly so desperate that she turned to Mike? By the time the divorce was finalized, I was emotionally drained. But then, things began to change. It turned out that many women found me not only acceptable, but even desirable. Before long, I started to realize I was more than just adequate. At least, that's what my new girlfriends told me. The anger was still inside me, but it had started to fade. The feelings of failure and inadequacy were gradually replaced by confidence. I dated several women and had more sex than I'd had in the entire last year of my marriage. The silver lining to the storm cloud was finally beginning to show. But I still had a problem. I just couldn't forget Janice. Everything reminded me of her, every day, in 100 little ways. She had been my partner, my friend, my lover, and my confidant. Now I was supposed to see her as my enemy, and that left me feeling deeply uncomfortable. After 20 years together, you don't just flip a switch and turn off love and loyalty. Kendra was angry with her mother, but she never cut off contact. Her love for Janice was perhaps purer than mine had been as a husband, but then again, a daughter's love doesn't come with the same expectations of fidelity. And that made all the difference. About a week after the little incident with Amber, Janice called me right after I got home from work. She spent a few minutes chatting about our daughter. To my surprise, I realized I was enjoying the conversation. My anger seemed to have cooled significantly. I guess any fire can burn for a long time, but eventually it dies out when the fuel runs out. "Jeff, would you be willing to meet for dinner tomorrow evening?" she asked. "There are a few things I'd like to discuss with you in person. I know it's short notice and you might already have plans, but I thought. How about 7 o'clock at the Rusty Nail?" I interrupted. "I'll wait for you at the bar if you're running late." "That would be wonderful, Jeff. I really appreciate the chance to talk," Janice replied enthusiastically. "I won't be late." I arrived a few minutes early, so I sat at the bar and ordered a beer. I picked up my mug and turned around to take a look at the crowd, and that's when I saw Janice gliding toward me. I nearly spilled my drink when I realized how incredible she looked. She was wearing a short black dress that showed off not only her legs but also a hint of cleavage. Janice had always been a beautiful woman, but I'd forgotten just how stunning her figure really was. She kissed me on the cheek and gave me a sweet smile. "Jeff, I'm not going to beat around the bush about why I wanted to see you tonight," Janice said once we placed our food orders. "Over the past 6 months, I've managed to become the top sales rep in our office. My prize is a week-long stay at a really nice resort in the Keys. It's for 2, Jeff." "Congratulations, Janice. I bet Mike's thrilled. He's probably even told you so, if he's talking yet." "I heard his jaw healed up pretty well," I teased. Janice flinched, then forced a sad smile. It seemed she had made up her mind not to react to my sharp remarks. "I expected that, Jeff. Maybe you haven't heard, but I haven't seen Mike since that day. I haven't been seeing anyone. That's probably why I became the top salesperson. For the past 6 months, all I've done is work and sleep," Janice admitted. "There's only one person I'd want to take with me, and that's you." "We'd give the concept of a messy divorce a bad name, Janice," I said quietly. "Why even ask me? What are you expecting to hear? You know how much it hurt when I found out you were cheating. Why would I agree to something like this? And why are you even asking? You'd get a free vacation. You could have me as much as you want. You'd see how much I've changed, and how badly I want to make things right with you, Jeff. No strings attached," Janice promised. "Just take me for a test drive and see what happens." "You've become a really good salesperson, Janice," I admitted. "But I'm afraid I'd be sending the wrong message if I went with you. We're divorced, and that's how it's going to stay." "I understand that, Jeff. I really do want to try," she said softly. "I'm not asking anything from you. You can use me however you want, anytime you want." "You'll forget all about Amber within the first hour with me," Janice predicted. "This is about Amber?" I asked. "We're not serious." Honestly, that was the first and last time I saw her after the divorce. "She's not an issue." "No, Jeff, it's not about her. It's about you and me, us," Janice said. "I just want you to see how good I can be to you. At the very least, we could be friends, with benefits, as they say these days. No pressure from me, other than a nightly sex requirement." She grinned. "You've got nothing to lose. And sex driven by guilt. It's surprisingly therapeutic. Why did Janice do this to me?" Sitting across from her at the table, I felt all those emotions I thought I had buried for good. She was an incredibly desirable woman, and she knew it. The thought of making love to her again made my body tense. That, ultimately, made the decision for me. "Janice, I might not even be able to get it up for you," I warned. "I was in complete despair when I found out about your affair." My confidence took a major hit. I've realized that I don't handle humiliation very well. "Jeff, I'm sure we can bring that stubborn guy back to life," Janice said with a soft smile. "I know I hurt you terribly. This would be my chance to make amends, even just a little. I'm not under any illusions. Use me, and toss me aside when you're done, if that's what you need to do," she insisted. "I do have a bit of free time, Janice. I'll call you tomorrow and let you know when I can go," I said. "Just remember what you told me, and don't expect anything to change after the trip," I warned. "Jeff. I'm so glad you agreed. You won't regret it. I promise." 3 weeks later, we checked into a very nice beachfront hotel. Janice was glowing. I felt slightly awkward when I discovered we were registered as Mr. and Mrs. Davenport, but correcting it seemed like more trouble than it was worth. Our room overlooked the bay, and the sunset view was breathtaking. I was standing on the balcony, enjoying the sights and sounds, when I felt Janice press herself against me. I glanced back over my shoulder. She was naked, and smiling. It took about 10 seconds to put to rest any doubts I had about whether my equipment would work around Janice. 2 hours later, we stepped out of the room. I realized that my experiences with other women had boosted my confidence and my ability to please. I surprised Janice with a few new moves I'd picked up along the way. The sex that week was incredible. Janice was willing to try anything I suggested. She was eager and enthusiastic about pleasing me. I started to remember all the reasons I had once asked her to marry me. We went swimming, snorkeling, shopping, and spent every day soaking up the sun. At night, we had hot, wild, monkey sex. It was a fantastic vacation. Janice didn't play golf, but she insisted that I sneak in a round near the end of the week. "I'll just sunbathe by the pool and read a book," she said, gently pushing me out the door so I wouldn't be late. That day, I played one of the best rounds of my life. The next day, Janice booked a full day at the hotel spa. She promised she'd finish up and meet me at the hotel bar by 5. It was well past 6 when she finally slipped onto the stool next to me. "Sorry I'm late, Jeff," she said apologetically. "It takes a bit longer to make this not-so-young lady look beautiful these days. I just hope you think it was worth the wait." Janice looked absolutely stunning. That evening, we had dinner and spent several hours dancing. I couldn't help but notice how men of all ages watched her as she walked across the room. But all good things must come to an end. Sunday found us on a plane heading home. I was more relaxed than I had been in months, maybe even years. "Did you have a good time, Jeff?" Janice whispered. "Want to join the Mile High Club? I've heard they shoot down your desires from altitude," no pun intended, I smirked. "I'll pass, unless they're showing Shakespeare in Love." "So, Jeff, would you consider putting your boots under my bed?" Janice asked. "I think I've shown you how much I love you, and that I'd do anything for you, sweetheart. I'm not expecting you to marry me again, unless that's really what you want. We could just live together for a while and see where it goes. Janice, this past week has been one of the best of my life. You're a beautiful, sexy woman. Any man would be proud to have you by his side. You were incredible in bed and fun to be around all day long. This trip was a great idea. I learned something about myself, and that matters more than I can say," I replied. Janice gave me a radiant smile, snuggling closer, wrapping her hands around mine, and pressing her chest against me. "Don't keep me in suspense," she pleaded softly. "What was it? What did you learn about yourself that's so important?" "You were the perfect companion, Janice. A man couldn't ask for a better vacation, or a more delightful woman to spend it with. Do you remember the day I went out for a full round of golf and you decided to relax by the pool? And the next day, when you went to the spa and showed up almost an hour later than we'd agreed? You'd never guess what was going through my mind while I was away from you, Janice. You couldn't wait to get back so we could make love, she asked shyly. Actually, I realized that I'll never be able to fully trust you again. That part of our relationship is gone, permanently. I found myself wondering if you were flirting with someone at the pool, or maybe even having sex while I was out playing golf. I wondered whether you were still at the spa or had run off with someone to sleep with him. And then I realized, maybe it's a mental scar I've developed. Maybe it's not even your fault. Maybe you really were doing exactly what you said you were doing. If you want to get together from time to time for sex, I'm more than willing, Janice. But there won't be any other kind of commitment beyond that. We can't have a real relationship if I don't trust you, and I don't. I'm just glad I realized it before making a huge mistake. We can simply meet up now and then. Maybe go dancing again. We'll be the friends with benefits you mentioned when you asked me to go on this trip. Janice didn't respond. She just buried her face in my arm and let out a quiet sob. I didn't take any pleasure in her pain, but the seed she had sown many months ago had finally taken root. Thank you for being with us. And if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like. It helps new stories come to light.